Down at the bottom of the world, buried in the ice, a few hundred miles off the South Pole, there's a mountain range on the official Antarctic map called the Horlicks Mountains. Not named for a captain, not named for a navigator or a sponsor country or some dead king, named for a guy who sold powdered malt drink out of Racine, Wisconsin. He never went to Antarctica. He never went anywhere near it. He just paid for the trip, and the men eating out of his tins put his name on the rocks. Most people file Horlicks under one specific vibe. Warm mug, wool blanket, British grandma. Lights out at 9. A drink for folks who have deliberately decided nothing exciting is going to happen tonight. Sleepy, fussy, kind of medicinal, old. Except it isn't British. Not originally. The stuff was cooked up in the American Midwest by two brothers from Gloucestershire who couldn't get anybody in London to fund them, so they bailed on England entirely and set up shop in Chicago. And it wasn't built to knock you out. It was built to keep something alive. The original label said infant and invalid's food. This was baby formula, invented back when a glass of fresh milk could genuinely kill a kid. Then there's the part that doesn't fit the granny mug at all. For roughly the first 50 years of its life, Horlicks was survival gear. It rode on sledges. It got stuffed into lifeboat rations and aircrew escape kits. It went places where cozy was not on the menu. So how does emergency ration hardware end up as the thing you sip in your pajamas? Short version. Somebody made up a disease. And the last wrinkle, the one that lands in our lifetime. In 2024, in the country where Horlicks is now genuinely huge, the government looked at what was in the tin and basically told the company it couldn't call itself a health drink anymore. Baby food, pole rations, invented illness, government pushback. It's not 4 stories. It's one long one, and it starts with 2 brothers in a village who could not catch a break. Ruardian, Gloucestershire, mid-1800s. The Horlick family is messing around with a problem that sounds boring and is actually enormous. How do you make food that doesn't rot? James Horlick, born 1844, trains as a pharmacist. William, born 1846, is the younger one, apprenticed as a harness maker. Together with their father, they'd been experimenting with grinding wheat and malted barley into a shelf-stable powder. Something you could seal in a container and open a year later. Here's the context that makes this matter. In the 1800s, milk was dangerous. Cities were growing faster than dairy supply. Refrigeration barely existed. Pasteurization wasn't standard yet. And milk-borne disease killed a staggering number of infants. If you couldn't nurse, your options were bad. A powder that turned into safe, nutritious, milk-adjacent food with hot water wasn't a convenience product. It was a lifeline. James tried to raise money in London. Nobody bid. So in 1869, William shipped out to the United States, landed in Racine, Wisconsin, and in 1873, James followed him to Chicago. That same year, the brothers founded J&W Horlick to make malted food for infants. By 1876, they'd moved the operation out to the Racine area. Dairy country, good spring water, milk right there. And William started chasing the hard version of the problem. Not just malted grain powder, but actual milk, dried. Chemists reportedly told him it couldn't be done, mechanically or chemically. He kept running batches anyway. Historians disagree on exactly how many years he spent failing, but it was years, not months. Then, June 5, 1883. U.S. patent 278,967. Granulated food for infants. They called it diastoid, which is a terrible name. And in 1887 they smartened up and trademarked what everybody actually called it, malted milk. That trademark is the hinge of this whole story. Because malted milk wasn't just a product, it was a category. Shelf-stable, lightweight, calorie-dense, mixes with water, doesn't spoil, doesn't need a cow. The company grows fast. A New York branch opens in 1889. James heads back to England around 1890 to run the British side, and by 1906 he's building a factory in Slough, just west of London, finished around 1908. That Slough plant is why so many people assume Horlicks is British. It's where the brand's British identity got manufactured, literally. But the wild chapter is what happens when other people get hold of the tins. Because the second you invent food that weighs almost nothing and never goes bad, you've accidentally invented expedition rations. Horlicks started selling malted milk lunch tablets, compressed pucks you could eat dry, straight from a bottle that looked like an aspirin jar. They went into backpacks. They went to war. British soldiers in World War I got them. Sometimes mailed out postage-free. Polar explorers took them south. Think about what that meant for a man hauling a sledge across a polar plateau. Weight is everything. Every ounce you drag is an ounce that has to earn its place. Fresh food freezes solid, spoils, or takes fuel to cook. A tin of malted milk powder is dense calories and protein that survives whatever you put it through, and mixes with melted snow. That's not a treat. That's the difference between turning back and pressing on. And in the 1930s, Admiral Richard Byrd's Antarctic expeditions took Horlicks to the ice. William Horlick was a backer, and Byrd named a mountain range after him. Sources put that naming right around 1934 to 1935. William died in 1936, aged 90, a well-known philanthropist around Racine. A man who spent his entire working life inside a Wisconsin factory ended up with a chunk of Antarctica. Back home, something else was brewing. In 1922, at a Walgreens soda fountain in Chicago, a soda jerk named Ivar Pop Colson supposedly took the standard malted milk drink and dumped ice cream in it. That's the origin story for the American malted milkshake, the malt, and it's the version everybody tells, though soda fountain history is messy, and you should hold it a little loosely. What isn't disputed is that malted milk became an American diner fixture, and the Horlicks patent is upstream of all of it. Now the crisis, refrigeration spreads, pasteurization becomes standard. Commercial infant formula gets better and more scientific. And the entire reason Horlicks existed, your milk will kill your baby, starts evaporating. By the late 1920s, the company is sitting on a product with a shrinking purpose. Explorers are a great story, but Explorers are maybe 400 customers worldwide. The fix wasn't chemistry. It was copywriting. Around 1931, Horlicks advertising rolled out a condition called night starvation. The pitch: while you sleep, your body runs out of fuel. And that's why you wake up tired, irritable, run down, underperforming. The ads were brutal in a very 1930s way. A man loses his job because he's sluggish. A wife loses her glow. A worried mother is told her child is outgrowing her strength. Then a doctor in a pinstripe suit takes off his glasses and delivers the diagnosis. Night starvation is not a medical condition. It was never in a textbook. It was invented to sell a bedtime mug of malted milk, and it is one of the most successful pieces of advertising in the history of food, because 90+ years later, people on 3 continents still drink this stuff at bedtime and could not tell you why. For the record, the science on whether malted milk actually improves sleep is thin. There have been small studies over the decades hinting at something, and Gay Skak at one point said it would finally explain the mechanism. A hot drink at a consistent hour, a full stomach, and a strong expectation will do a lot of work on their own. Then World War II hands the brand its last great survival moment. Horlicks tablets went to American, British, and other Allied troops, tucked into lifeboat and life raft rations and aircrew escape kits. The stuff you eat when the plan has gone completely sideways. And war is how Horlicks found the market that would eventually define it. The standard account is that Horlicks reached India with the British Army, and that Indian soldiers coming home after the World Wars brought the taste back with them, especially in Punjab. That's the version told everywhere, and it's plausible. But the fine detail of how a colonial ration became a household staple isn't as well documented as people make it sound. What is documented is the scale of what happened next. In Britain, Horlicks stayed a nighttime drink. In India, it flipped. Marketed as a breakfast and growth drink, the thing you give a kid so they get Taller, sharper, stronger. Different meal, different promise, same powder. India became far and away the biggest Horlicks market on earth. The ownership churns through the back half of the century. The brand lands with Beecham in 1969, then SmithKline Beecham, then GlaxoSmithKline. Then two moves that basically split the company in half. In 2017, the UK Horlicks business is sold off to Amia Foods, and British production at Slough winds down. And in December 2018, GSK agrees to hand the Indian nutrition business to Unilever, valued at roughly $3.8 billion, merging GSK's Indian consumer health arm into Hindustan Unilever. The center of gravity moves permanently east, which brings us to the modern fight. In 2023 and 2024, Indian malted drinks came under real scrutiny over sugar content, kicked off publicly by criticism of Bournvita from an influencer known as Food Farmer, then escalated when the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights got involved with India's food regulator. The finding that mattered was almost funny in how simple it was. Under Indian food law, health drink isn't defined. It's not a legal category. It never was. The Commerce Ministry told online retail platforms to pull these products out of the health drinks bucket. And in April 2024, Hindustan Unilever dropped the health tag from Horlicks and Boost and renamed the whole category functional nutritional drinks. Their CFO framed it as being more accurate and transparent. Read that against 1931, and it's the same argument, 93 years apart. In 1931, a company invented a condition so the drink could be the cure. In 2024, a regulator pointed out that the word on the label didn't actually mean anything. So go back to the ice. The Horlick Mountains are still there, still on the map, still carrying the name of a harness maker's apprentice from a Gloucestershire village who moved to Wisconsin and spent years failing to dry milk into powder. He got that range because his tins were in the sledges, because he'd solved a problem that mattered when milk was lethal and food had to survive a year in a crate. The mountains never changed. The tin did. The tin did. The same powder that kept men alive in Antarctica and got sealed into life raft kits over the Atlantic became a marketing invention about being tired at 3 in the morning. And then a breakfast drink for school kids in the morning. Punjab. And then a product arguing with a regulator about what the word health means. That's the honest arc here. Horlicks didn't get less useful. It ran out of emergencies. And when a survival food outlives the disaster it was built for, it has to find a new one, or invent it. If you dug this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next Dawn of Eras episode, and drop the food, drink, or object you want dismantled next in the comments. Somebody's kitchen cabinet is hiding a story just as strange as this one.